Hey everybody, welcome back to Bible Basics, where we are in our study of Apologetics. My name is George Willett, youth and family minister down here at the Westport Christian Church. Apologetics is the study of the reasons that you have faith. And it's something all Christians are commanded to be able to do, is to give the reasons for the hope that is in you. And there's lots of different ways that we can do that, and it can be very personal, or it can be very scientific. It can be using the laws of logic and philosophy. And we're going through some of these. And I know some of this is very new for people, but I think it is important in this day and age. Evangelism is spelled apologetics. The world is more and more and more wanting to know if there's even any evidence for faith, and why the evidence for Christianity is to be believed, and why we should want to follow Jesus Christ. So I understand that this is not going to be something that a lot of you may want to get deep into, and that's okay. It may be a little bit confusing, and that's okay. I'll do the best I can. Again, I'm not an expert at this. I'll do the best I can to explain it in language that you can understand. And then it's at least something you have that you can point someone to, you can share with someone, or you can walk them through that there actually are some reasons. And today we're in lesson 6, Reasons for Faith from Science, part 1. For the last couple of weeks we went over, are there actually reasons for faith? Are there reasons for trust? Is there any evidence? And I gave a couple of different ways that there is evidence. And today we're going to start going through some scientific evidence. Now, again, as I said before, you can give this evidence and people can choose to believe or not. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to say, this is convincing for me. We don't argue with people. We don't try to hammer people upside the head to get them to believe, because that doesn't work. We just present the evidence to the best of our abilities. So when I talk about reasons for faith from science, what am I talking about? Well, remember we looked at the beginning of the universe. That's called the Cosmological Argument. And this is what it looks like. The argument is this, that everything that had a beginning had a cause. So and you just look around the world and you know this, if you look at a car, you know it just didn't randomly appear that way. You know that there wasn't an explosion at a factory and all of a sudden a car is there, that somewhere along the line someone actually put that together. The same with a house, the same with a bicycle, the same with our cell phones. So we just know that things that have a beginning, that are created, have a cause. Well, the universe had a beginning. The universe was created. That's the thing we're going to look at. And if that holds true, therefore the universe had a cause. There's got to be something outside of the universe that explains why the universe is here. So the first thing I want to look at is Einstein's theory of general relativity. Again, people like, this is a church channel, this is, apologetics, we're talking about Jesus and the Bible and faith and religion, and how dare you try to bring up science? Well, again, if God is real, if the universe was created by Him, we should be able to see some evidence in what He has created. So here is the theory of general relativity, the Big Bang theory. That if you go back in time, the universe, because right now it is expanding, it is getting bigger, space is growing into nothing, space is just getting bigger, that if you go in the opposite direction in the past, the universe was closer together until everything in the universe compacts into one small point. And then, poof, there's nothing. Looks like this. This is just, and I don't want people getting hung up on times and dates and the how long the universe has existed. That's not the point of this. The point is that scientific evidence is showing that the universe is expanding, that at some point in the past, it all compresses into such a finite point, a singularity, where everything that exists right now was in this infinitesimal small point, and then bang, there's nothing. You can't even say before the Big Bang, because time was created at the Big Bang. So what was Here before, there was nothing. And what's nothing? One guy says it's what rocks dream about. Nothing means nothing. The second point of evidence is what's called the laws of thermodynamics. These are physical laws that are, because of the way the universe is created, the way the universe exists, these things they know scientifically are true. Please stick with me. I know this is probably not, may have been a long time since any of you have been in school. If you're a grandma or grandpa that is watching to helping your kids with faith, or even those of us who are parents, and even if there's some kids, maybe you've not gotten into this yet. So stick with me. The first law is this, the law of conservation of energy. And all it says is that all the energy in the universe, you look at all the universe and all the time the universe has existed and all the time the universe is yet to exist, the same amount of energy exists. That energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's only converted. So an example, if you want to have a fire, you cut down wood, and in that wood there is the potential for energy. You let it on fire and it's released in light and heat. The energy isn't destroyed, it's released, it's converted. You see this law at work when you open up and get in your car. They take gasoline, which is in the ground in one form, they convert it into a usable form, and then your car uses it to create heat and energy and movement. So we're not creating anything new, it's there. There's no way to create it, there's no way to destroy it, we just convert it. What this means is that at some point, something had to put all of this energy into the universe. If the universe has all of the usable material that it's ever going to have, we're not creating more matter, we're not creating more energy, then it all had to come from someplace. And this also goes into the second law. This is the law of entropy. Again, don't get hung up on these words because you know what it means. The law of entropy generally says nature goes from an organized to a disorganized state. And what it means is this. I see this with kids all the time, and I tell them this, okay, you're in your house, you've got your room. If your mom and dad don't make you clean up your room, and if you never clean up your room, what eventually happens? And they tell me it becomes messy. That's the law of entropy, is that there's stuff that's organized, there's stuff that's ordered, there's stuff that's in its place, and over time it goes to more mess, more disorganization. Things break down. If you leave an apple on the counter at your house and you just leave it there for weeks and weeks and weeks, you see it break down. It goes from an apple that you get from a tree that you can eat to the thing that's rotten and smelly. The car example, you fill it up with a tank of gas and you start driving around. Well, what eventually happens? If you don't fill it back up, then your car runs out of gas. Why is this proof for a beginning of the universe? If we have all the usable energy in the universe that there's ever going to be, it's already been created, it's here, it's just being converted, and we've not run out of gas yet, it means that the universe has not always existed. That at some point the car got turned on and we've not burned up all the fuel yet. The universe had a beginning point, and that's what Einstein's theory of general relativity pointed to, is that at some point in the past the universe was created. It began. And everything in it began. And we'll get to that more detail in a minute. Here's other evidence in science. There's a stuff called the cosmic microwave background radiation. Okay, why does this matter? Just stick with me. Einstein's theory of relativity kind of said, okay, listen, if the universe had this explosion where everything got created from nothing, there was nothing, and then there was everything, you should see the evidence for that Big Bang everywhere you look in the universe. There should be this energy wave that we can kind of see, this red shift is what they call it. It wasn't until like 1965 where these two guys at Bell Laboratories in New Jersey, of all places, had one of these big microwave telescopes pointed in the sky, and they found evidence for this. And then they redid the experiment, and people kept finding it. What Einstein had talked about, what his theory had said was going to happen back in the early 1900s, 1911, 1913. 1965, they find evidence. And from the encyclopedia.com, this is, again, you can find this in scientific books. I'm just doing quick research. It says that black body radiation filling the entire universe is exactly what was predicted on the basis of the Big Bang Theory. The CMB, cosmic microwave background radiation, is still one of the strongest pieces of evidence for the Big Bang. This is important because scientifically, Einstein's theory says there's a beginning of the universe, that it was created. Here's the evidence that proves it. Why does this matter? Because we know if something is created, then it has a cause. It has something that created it. Einstein was so bothered by this theory that he developed because he thought the universe had always existed, that the universe was eternal. And you never had to ask the question of what created the universe. He actually then made some calculations. He tried to fudge the numbers and eventually accepted the fact that the universe had a beginning. And from then, the early 1900s till now, science has continually proved that our universe that we live in, everything you see around you, at one point didn't exist. That there was nothing, absolutely nothing. Why does that matter? Because it means that there was what's called in philosophical and scientific circles, creation ex nihilo. And it's hard for us to understand this, and there are some scientists, atheistic scientists, who get around this. They say, well, at the beginning there was a cloud of quantum numbers, or at the beginning there is plasma, or at the beginning there are strings, or all these other things, that they're trying to figure out a way to say that there was something that made something instead of nothing. Because they know the minute we accept that creation ex nihilo is what happened, we have to ask the question, then why does all this exist? What made the universe? What we know also is that the cause of the universe, whatever this thing is that created the universe, is uncaused itself. It's self-existent. It is the thing that is the uncaused first cause. Because if you prove that thing has a cause, then it just keeps going back like dominoes until eventually you have to get to something, someone who is self-existent, that doesn't need a cause. That whatever created the universe is timeless. Not just eternal, because eternal still kind of talks about time. You know, there's still this passage of time that never ends. Time was created at the Big Bang. So whatever created the universe goes beyond eternal. It's timeless. It doesn't have time. It's not in time. And that's important. It's non-spatial. Space was made at the Big Bang. Again, we don't understand this. Before the Big Bang, there was no time. There's no space. So this thing is spaceless. Spirit might be a word I would use. Immaterial. All matter, rocks and chemicals and minerals and gases and everything that is matter was created at the Big Bang. All the materials, the building blocks that were needed are created, so whatever created it, something can't create itself. So if matter is created, then whatever created it is immaterial. Again, spiritual. There's matter, and then there's spirit, soul. That's how I would explain it. It's infinite. There's no boundaries. There's no limits to whatever it is. The universe is a finite thing. There's space, there's time, there's matter, there's these dimensions. And scientists are looking at the edges of this is the known universe. It's got boundaries and limits to it. Whatever created the universe is without limit by definition. All powerful. Think about it. Whatever created the universe created everything in this moment of light and heat and power. Everything was created. Something has to be immensely powerful to do that. Supremely intelligent. And here's why I say this. When you look at the universe, and we're not going to get into it too much detail, a little bit next week with the design theory, but the universe all around us, and scientists will admit this, appears to be finely tuned. The numbers, the way everything seems to be set, like instruments on a very, very complex board, all these little dials that can be moved, and they have to be dialed into exactly the right way. The building blocks have to be put together in exactly the right way. Whatever created the universe has to be immensely intelligent. We know this when you look at skyscrapers, when we look at jet airplanes, when we look at any of the created things that we see around us. The more complex it is, the more intelligence it took to create it. That's just something that we can see living out in our lives. That's all I'm talking about here, is it just makes sense. And then personal. This is the one where people can argue a little bit. Well, why would you say that the cause of the universe has to be a person, has to be personal? We know that impersonal, random forces do not create organization, don't create order. Second law of thermodynamics, things fall apart, they don't come together. If you've ever lived through a tornado, you've seen what nature does, it tears apart. If you've ever seen an explosion, if there's a bomb that goes off, it doesn't create things, it destroys things. Impersonal forces bring entropy, destruction. It is only minds. It is only personal intellect, guided by a thought, guided by a will, guided by a person, that creates something. And we see that in nature all the time. Where I was growing up in New England, in New Hampshire, there was this face of a mountain, the old man in the mountain. If you looked at a right angle, it kind of looked like a profile of a man. Kind of. And then you go to Mount Rushmore and you see the difference. The weathering of the wind and the rain kind of made a profile, but it was really rough and you had to use a lot of your imagination to see it. Versus something where a person put a hammer and chisel to stone and created something. You could see the difference there. Random forces versus a personal mind. So the question is this: if the universe had a beginning, which the evidence, and I have only scratched like a little bit to show that there's good reason for people to believe that the universe had a beginning, then whatever made time, space, matter, whatever put all of this stuff together has to be outside of all of that, because it existed before all of this was created. So what would you call the uncaused, timeless, non-spatial, immaterial, infinite, all-powerful, supremely intelligent, personal being that created the universe? God. Now, I'll be the first to admit, this argument does not get me to the Christian God. But as an apologetic to get people to realize that what makes sense to the evidence that we see is there's something outside of the universe, something outside of nature, something supernatural that is the cause of the universe. This is a great place to start. And I want to say this. This evidence has been building up over years and years, that there are actually non-believing scientists today who, when looking at the universe, are saying, maybe the cause of the universe, maybe an explanation is that there are extra-dimensional aliens out there that created this universe and are observing us. Or maybe we're living in a computer simulation like The Matrix, this movie about people living in a computer and experiencing life in a computer program. And there are scientists who say that that is a possibility. Why? Because of all the scientific evidence that the universe has a beginning, that it was created, and something has to have created it, but also the design, which we'll get into next week. My question is this: if really smart people would say that that's a possibility, a possible answer for the creation of the universe, they're willing to say perhaps aliens or a computer program, why will they not say God? I think they have a personal problem of their will. We talked about that before, why people don't believe. To believe in aliens creating the universe or a computer program somewhere doesn't put me under the moral judgment of a creator. Those aliens don't have the same moral right to hold me accountable as an all-powerful God does, who created me for a purpose, with the moral law in me, being held accountable to him. Again, the beginning of the universe, it looks immensely, overwhelmingly like this is real, creation ex nihilo. That there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And then in an instant, there was everything. Why does that matter for the Christian argument? Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What believers in God proclaim is what God said about himself, that God created the universe. That there was nothing, and then because of God's will, there was everything. And science, just a little over 100 years ago, said that was true. In Isaiah, we read, God the Lord created the heavens and stretched them out. He created the earth and everything in it. He gives breath to everyone, life to everyone who walks the earth. There's evidence in science that says what the Bible has been teaching for thousands of years is true. Now, people don't have to believe that evidence. They can say it's weak. They can say that it's me putting God in the gaps, that there's information I don't have. So it's just easy for me to say God did. And I probably won't convince those people, but it's not a God of the gaps argument. It's saying using the evidence that's out there, what best explains what we see. I will say that people who reject this evidence reject it not because it's not believable, it's because they start before they ever ask the question saying, I will not let God even be an option. They will not believe in the supernatural, which just means something outside of nature, which whatever created the universe is outside of nature, but they always want to look for a naturalistic explanation. They will not believe in miracles. They will not believe that God is a personal God. And I would say God's greatest miracle, we've already seen it. The universe is here. We can see it, we can understand it, we can investigate it, and is exactly what Christian scientists did hundreds of years ago, taking the Bible, saying if God created, we should be able to see his fingerprints on it. We should be able to see organization and thought and this personal will in the creation of the universe. And armed with that knowledge from the Bible, they went and tested their theories, and the evidence came back that yes, the universe is created. I hope this makes sense. I know this went a little bit longer. I know this is not the easiest stuff, but stick with me. We're going to talk about more science, reasons for faith from science next week. And then we're going to move on to some philosophy, and we're going to move on to the Bible. Why we can believe the evidence that's out there. Why it makes sense. Why I can trust that what God revealed in his word is something I can put my faith in. All right, let me pray, and then we'll see you next week. Father God, I come before you. I thank you. I ask humbly that you use this meager teaching. There is so much more, Father, that you've revealed, but I ask that if anyone is interested, that you bring them to people who know more, that you bring them to the evidence and the explanations that are out there that can deepen their faith. May your people understand that we have good reasons to believe. And for people who are struggling with belief, will you help them to understand that you are all over the universe, that your fingerprints are everywhere, and that they can have a reason to believe, to put their hope and their faith in you and surrender to your Son, Jesus Christ, as their Savior. I ask all of this in his name for their good, but for your glory, in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. All right, thanks everybody. See you next week.